It's week 5. I'm Nelson Hubbell for the Maize Blue review, and let's get into it. So, I've been putting this out as an article on Michigan.rivals.com for the Maize Blue review for a little while now, but I got a graphic that accompanies it every week, and let's take a look at that graphic. So, new number 1. Michigan has been number 1. They've been the incumbent since the conclusion of week 1. Penn State has overtaken them after that dominant performance against Iowa, previously Illinois as well. Now, I do think Michigan is the higher ceiling as a team. I also still think Michigan will get there, but power rankings are a week-to-week basis, and I think if they played on a neutral field, Penn State would beat both Michigan and Ohio State, and in turn, everybody else in the conference. So really, why is Michigan 2? They haven't played as well as I think they could so far this season. It helps having Harbaugh back, and they played very well against Rutgers after that first quarter, but Penn State's look good. Their defense looks great. They're a very well-balanced team. And Ohio State, now that might be a surprise, right? So some people will think, well, okay, Michigan's not number 1. It's got to be Ohio State, right? They just beat Notre Dame. I honestly don't think they played very well against Notre Dame. I don't think that they really should have won that game. Now, props to Kyle McCord. I've said all season long that he's a top 5 quarterback in the conference, and as that's proven, to some degree, he's played well and okay at times, and also the conference is very dry of good quarterback play. I mean, once you get past Michigan, Penn State, Maryland, you're scrounging up scraps, and I think Kyle McCord will at least develop into that top, number 3 quarterback in the conference. It's really J.J. McCarthy, Drew Aller, and then McCord there. So Aller, McCord, both could fight for that spot if McCord comes out, but Aller looks great. And Tagovailoa right now, I think, is at 3 just because he's so good, so skilled, pretty savvy, does make some poor decisions, but I think his playmaking is top tier. Now, let's get back to the actual rankings here. So Michigan at number 2, Ohio State 3. Ohio State, again, like I said about Notre Dame, I thought they should have beat Ohio State, and that play by McCord, great to Ibuka at the goal line there, incredible. But I was actually more down on Ohio State maybe after this game than I was before it. After coming off that Youngstown State win and how they played, so far this season. Maryland at 4, they're just kind of stuck there. I think Maryland, could get to 9 wins this season, should get to 9 wins this season, losing to those top 3 teams. Now, potentially they could beat one, and potentially they drop a game somewhere that they shouldn't have, which I think is more likely than them beating one of the top 3, but who knows? So they're stuck at 4. Wisconsin now is a riser. I had them at 8, and they jump all the way up to 5. I think they're in the lead for the Big Ten West, and part of that is how I've seen Washington State play. They lost to Washington State, and that's their loss, and I don't think it's that big a blemish on their record, to be fair, to this point. Iowa struggled with putting them at 6, but the Big Ten is very, very weak after the 5, and Iowa's got a good defense. Their offense needs to figure things out. Kirk Ferentz, it's his job or it's Brian Ferentz's job, right? So either he fires Brian Ferentz at some point, or Kirk Ferentz, I think, this is a hot take maybe, but I think he should lose his job if he does not fire Brian Ferentz at the end of the season and things do not get better, because he's had his sample size, and I know it's hard to fire your son, and I really think that's neither here nor there. And then Rutgers, they did exactly what I expected would happen to them against Michigan, but they hung in there and they looked okay, losing 31-7. It wasn't a bad 31-7 loss, and I think Rutgers could be one of those teams that might be pretty beaten up on because of the division they're in the Big Ten, but they could be, a little bit of a surprise for whoever they get in bowl season if they can make one, which I think they will. And then Michigan State is on a downward spiral. I mean, Mel Tucker's firing just got officialized by the university, and that means the 30-day transfer portal window opens up for their players. We'll see what happens there. I'm not sure a ton of guys will leave, but there could be a mass exodus. So we'll see how that plays out. So far, I still think they're better than the 5 or 6 teams below them. And, we'll see how that goes. But really, I think they didn't look so bad against Maryland, even though they lost 31-9, I think was the final. It could have been worse. And I just don't like anyone else in this conference right now. I think Minnesota's underperforming. Nebraska, and maybe a little bit of a surging team at number 9. Heinrich Harburg looks pretty good. Michigan's going to have to watch out for him in the run game. Their running offense or rushing attack is number 1 in the conference. Their rush defense is number 1 in the conference, but their passing defense is not good and their passing offense is not good. In a league in a state of college football where you have to be able to throw the ball. So we'll see how that plays out. Harburg has not turned it over yet, and that could be a key in this game. It's the reason I think he will keep this job over Jeff Sims is if he does not turn the ball over. Minnesota blew a 21-point game to Northwestern. That's why Northwestern moves up from 14 to 13 for me. Indiana hasn't looked good. They won barely over Akron, and I think they are the worst team. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. The Golden Gophers, not a horrible loss to UNC the week before, but they come out and look that game against Northwestern, look very complacent after getting up big. And Ben Bryant throws for almost 400 yards for the Wildcats and 4 touchdowns in that comeback. Illinois, Luke Altmaier, so-so, beat Florida Atlantic. Altmaier threw for 300 yards and a touchdown, so maybe some improvement there. Very, wishy-washy on what that means against a team like Florida Atlantic. But he's going to have to prove it against better competition. And again, I think ahead of Illinois as a sleeper team this year, I think. And I believe that they still could be that. They are 2-2, but the defense has the talent. Their offense has some guys, including Altmaier. They just have to figure it out and put it together. And maybe developmentally, they might be a sneaky good 5-7, 6-6 team by the end of the season, potentially. Probably more lean towards 5-7 at this point. Purdue loses to Wisconsin, who looked very good in that win. Big win for Wisconsin. Purdue still, I just don't think they're worse than Northwestern or Indiana. They have enough talent. They have a good quarterback in Hudson Card, who's, I'd say, the number 5 quarterback in the conference, which is still up for grabs. But he threw 2 picks and struggled against Wisconsin. And, it is what it is. Purdue probably could be a little better than their record. So, it's one of those teams. It's like these last, 6 through 14. I'm like, these teams are underperforming. A lot of them are. But this is a power rankings, and I think that Illinois and Purdue potentially could move up anywhere between 12 and 11 there, all the way up to 7, So we'll see how that plays out. Northwestern, 13. Yeah, I really didn't think they'd get to 2 wins on this season, and here they are at 2-2. So they could surprise some people if their passing attack comes out and plays as well as it did against Minnesota, who has a pretty good defense. So that was interesting to see happen because Northwestern, last time they were a good throwing team was Clayton Thorson, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And then Indiana, Trey Jackson, I don't know. Their offense is just bad, and their defense is not very good. I think that game against Ohio State was just you come out early in the season, catch them off guard maybe, come out fired up, tackling really well. And that's why they hung in that for a little while. But Indiana right now is just it's not looking good. So I've got them at 14. But as a whole, let's bounce back out of this to a little bit bigger of a screen for you guys here, and we can just wrap it up just real quick. So, I'm looking at all of this, and this is always subject to change. Your team it could be Indiana, right? It could be Minnesota, who I think Minnesota could be a riser this season. It's only week 4. We're only through week 4. We're about to come up on week 5 here. So this is early. There's still a lot of movement that could happen. A lot could change. I think really the top 4 is pretty much set for me, especially those top 3, which we already knew coming into this year. But the Big East is clearly the much better conference than the West, and no surprises with that. Coaching is very heavily he gets his team right. He gets his guys. Maybe Wisconsin becomes something there this season by the conclusion of it, or next season they could be a competitive team. Now you're bringing in 4 new very high quality programs from the Pac-12, so we'll see how that plays out. But which, by the way, to be clear, I don't like. I wish the Pac-12 still existed. I like the traditional regionality of college football, but. Yeah, so just to wrap it up here, folks, we'll be back next week with another episode. I do Nelson's Nuggets, a segment here on YouTube or on any other platform, including Michigan.Rivals.com, where I just post a minute-long video of me breaking down what topic of the day in Michigan football, sometimes the Big Ten. And, that's my favorite little piece of content that I get to do. But this is fun, too, and I do a look around the Big Ten, which wraps up the conference play as well. And that should come out usually Sunday or Monday, usually on Monday night. So thank you for watching, folks. We'll be back again here. This is my Big Ten Power Rankings show. I am Nelson Hubbell, and we'll see you next time.